Hi there, my name is Portia Laurie. Welcome back or welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be bringing you something I've never done before on my YouTube channel. I've been really obsessed with this one channel, Bailey Sarian, and every Monday she releases these videos called Murder, Mystery, and Makeup Mondays, where she talks about like a true crime event while she puts on her makeup. And I think it's really fun. I actually really like watching people do random tasks while talking about a subject, so I thought I'd bring that to my channel. So today I'm going to be talking to you about the history of the Woodstock Music Festival. So if that interests you, please make sure you hit that like button down below so that I know. While I talk to you about that, I'm going to be putting on my makeup, hence why this is how I'm introing the video. So whether or not you're into makeup, this is really inclusive. I'm just talking about the history of Woodstock because, quite frankly, until I decided to do this video, I had no idea what happened at this festival. And if you like videos about pop culture, movies, music, TV, whatever, make sure you hit my subscribe button, and if you hit that notification bell next to it, you'll be notified every time I upload. So let's go ahead and just get into it. Also, this is not a tutorial. Like, please don't get it twisted. I'm not a beauty guru. I don't even know how to properly put on makeup. I just do what kind of works for my face and run with it. But if you are interested in any of the products that I'm using, I will have them linked in the description below. It's gonna be an adventure for both of us. I hope you're excited. Woodstock is a music festival, arguably the most successful music festival of all time, at least in 1969. The thing that makes Woodstock stand out, I think, for most people, is the fact that it was this huge giant concert with all these big name acts, and it was free. But what I was surprised to find out when I started researching this is that Woodstock was never supposed to be free. Are you blown away? Because I was blown away. But to find out at the end of the day that this was all a ploy to make money, ultimately, pretty crazy. Anyway, let's get into it. I'm jumping way ahead of myself. So Joel Rosenman and John Roberts were two somewhat wealthy businessmen. He was looking for some business or entrepreneur to invest his money in for a higher return. Remember how I said they were trying to make money? Well, these two fellas hooked up with another two fellas, Artie Kornfeld and Mike Lang, and they started they basically told them that they had an idea to build a recording studio in Walk Hill, New York, which was home to like really a lot of like famous artists in that time. Well, what started out as just wanting to build a recording studio ultimately turned into a 2-day festival in order to raise the money to build said recording studio. And also, I'm sure a music festival would build more hype around this area. They'd have time and people to talk to get people interested in building said recording studio, find more investors, etc. So that is how Woodstock began. So they originally wanted to hold a concert in Churchill, New York, but the way that they wanted to market this festival is that it was going to be about peace, love, and unity. But there's a lot of shit going down in America during that time frame. I'm not a history teacher, so I'm not going to tell you about it. But the most important thing to know is that the Vietnam War was happening. So people were pissed off, and people were people were polarized. You were either for the war or you were against the war. And this specific festival, these bands that they were booking were hugely anti-war.
And it's 1, 2, 3, what are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. The next stop is Vietnam. And it's 5, 6, 7, open up the pearly gates. Well, there ain't no time to wonder why. We're all gonna die.
And like, they weren't excited about it. So the city got together and they had a meeting about it, and they basically lobbied to make sure that this festival didn't happen. Ultimately, there was a ban on festivals being played in that city, so they had to stop what they were doing, which at the time was already a big deal. They had already booked a band at that time, which had made it seem like the festival was really, really gonna happen. They had booked this band, Creedence Clearwater Revival, which I know most of you watching are like, I don't know who the hell that is. I've never heard of them. They were really big, okay? They were the Imagine Dragons, okay, of the 60s. So imagine that. This huge band is gonna play, and because that huge band is gonna play, it's going to create a domino effect. So they were kind of scrambling for a second because they were like, wow, we have to move the entire venue. Where are we gonna go? Oh, but real quick before I forget. So remember how people think that Woodstock was a free concert, and at some point, I mean, it did become a free concert. We'll talk about that. But before it was a free concert, it was made to make money for this recording studio. And when I looked at the ticket prices, I know that I am not thinking about inflation. In the comments right now, before I display it, please tell me how much you think these tickets are gonna be. Per day, it's a 3-day festival in upstate New York. Don't worry, I'll wait. $7 a day. $7. For $7, you could go see Jimi Hendrix, fucking the Grateful Dead, 2 days for $13 or 3 days for $18. Woo, really breaking the bank. But in that time, maybe I'll do a conversion on the screen so you can see like how much it would have been in like today's prices. Woodstock was intended to make money. So don't ever get it twisted. Stop thinking that it was put on because the love of the music. No, that's just good marketing, and they got you. They did actually sell tickets. They had pre-sold tickets. They started selling tickets while they were still thinking that they were gonna hold the event in Waukegan. I have said it 30 different ways. I don't know how to pronounce it. I will just throw it up on the screen. Okay, so far, I just want you guys to know, here's a progress report. Doing your makeup while talking, incredibly hard. So they did sell tickets in advance, and they did manage to sell, I wanna say like, I think they sold like 100,000 tickets, and then they were expecting 200,000 people. Crazy. I lost my train of thought again. Okay, so the organizers had figured out that they were gonna run a festival. It was gonna be 3 days long. They were starting to book bands. They had started selling tickets, and then they got their venue taken away. A local dairy farmer named Max Yeager, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that last name, offered up his dairy farm that was about 600 acres of land. They immediately went in and started building and trying to get this festival ready in time. Due to the fact that they had to move the festival, it just makes everything that much harder. Gotta get new permits because they're gonna be probably for the sale of food and for having the music, and they've got to rebuild a stage in this different area. They got to build concession stands, ticket booths, all this kind of stuff, and they were running really, really behind already since they had to move locations at the last minute. A lot of things didn't end up getting finished in time for the festival, like ticket booths and fences, and the really important things that you need to keep people out of a festival they haven't paid for. In Bethel, they actually made a law banning police officers, off-duty police officers, from working the event. Significantly did not help them in the security department of this whole festival. So like, as you can see, like this festival was like not, it was not looking like it was gonna even happen. Like, from everything I've read, like they must have been seriously panicked to see if this thing was actually gonna work out or not. So the concert took place in August 15th through the 18th of 1969. And 2 days before, on the 13th, concert goers started showing up at the venue. Started showing up, about 50,000 people, and because the fence wasn't completed in time, there were like gaps in it and holes. So they ended up just crashing through those, I guess, just going through them and camping next to the stages. The thing that we have to do now essentially is just make it a free concert. And that is why Woodstock is free. It's not the end of my story, but I just want you to know the reason that Woodstock was free is just because of poor timing and poor management. I didn't even tell you where they moved the thing to. They moved it to Bethel, New York. So people are just flooding into the city. Radio stations have announced that the concert is now free to anyone who can basically get there, and that creates like a mania, I think you could say. I feel like if I had been a teenager during this time period, I would have, and I had been anywhere near the East Coast, I would have been trying to get my ass there too. They caused all this traffic. They almost shut down the New York freeway, and it got so bad that the mayor, I believe, was threatening to call in the National Guard to, like, I guess probably help get people out of the city or like get the traffic moving again. That ended up not happening. They did help the performers get into the festival via like helicopter, which is so funny to think about. Like, isn't that crazy? Janis Joplin hopping in a helicopter so that she can play at freaking Woodstock. So nuts. There were even bands that never got to play because they couldn't get in. They couldn't get into the city. It's estimated that they turned away like 500,000 people, and that 500,000 people actually got into Woodstock. So this event that was supposed to be for 50,000 people, maybe 200,000, it's estimated that at least 500,000 people attended Woodstock in 1969. And could you imagine how crowded it was? It was also hot as hell because it's New York, so it was like very, what's the word I'm looking for? Humid. So it was just like a lot of bodies and not a lot of places to go. Pretty surprisingly, the concert actually started on time. So the first player was Richie Havens. He started his set Friday night at like 6-ish, kicked off the event, and the first night seemed to go pretty well. Not too many problems. I have tried to talk and do my eyebrows at the same time, and it has never worked. So I'm gonna pause for a second and I'll be right back. To quote the great Tana Mojo, always sisters, never twins. This is by far the hardest video I've filmed so far. Obviously, because I don't get to just stand there and flail my arms around. I think about how much my arms are flailing, but like I can't cut it out. So it's like I just have to deal with it. That's why there's a lot of zoom-ins. Goddamn hands. Me being judgmental of myself for 50 minutes straight. So the first night goes out almost without a hitch, but not quite. So during Ravi Shankar's set, again, if I'm butchering these names, I'm sorry. It did start to rain, which actually cut his set a little bit short. And that was really just a preview of like all the events to come for that weekend. And that is because it was raining off and on throughout the entire concert, which caused so many delays that the concert actually ended up running all the way into Monday morning. So there was like a storm Friday night. There's another storm Saturday afternoon that caused like a 4-hour delay in the acts playing. And then there was a ton throughout the night, so that all like I guess the psychedelic bands were playing on Saturday. So like those ended up basically playing all through the night. I think Janis Joplin was one of the last people to go on, and she didn't play until like 6 o'clock in the morning. Like could you imagine like being at a festival, not having anywhere to go, there's like no hotels, there's nothing, and you're camping and it's storming, and it's hot storming. Humidity, oh, I could not imagine trying to do that at Woodstock. It was raining off and on, and that created these mud pits. They didn't have enough porta potties for all the people that ended up showing up, obviously. I feel like toilets are one of those things that like every event forgets that people need those. And I guess for your average event, it's like one toilet for every 50 people, which that sentence is kind of still gross. Like one. But they had like one toilet for like every 800 people, which is nuts. So it would take like an hour you'd be standing in line for like an hour just to fucking piss. And you know what that means. Like people were not doing that. So that had to make like the grounds really unhealthy. And then because there weren't enough toilets, like they weren't getting like funneled out or like cleaned out enough, so they were like overflowing. So then they're overflowing, and that's flowing into all this mud and like sewage. So basically all those pictures that you see of people covered in mud, they're covered in like mud and like feces and urine and like whatever else. I'm getting like grossed out just thinking about it. Also because of all the water, like the stage got really damaged, and actually during the Grateful Dead set, they were like trying to touch their equipment and they were actually getting shocked by it. There was like 2 feet of water on the stage, which again is why they kept having to delay certain acts. Everything about Woodstock was also being filmed, which is like really funny to think about. Like they were, you know, YouTubing, daily vlogging before we were. And because that everything was being filmed and there were so many technical problems, there were a lot of acts that like their full set didn't get filmed or didn't get filmed at all. Just like everything that could go wrong essentially did. The food ran out, and they actually ended up flying in hot dogs to help with the masses, but they charged triple the price for them. So people got mad. So people were upset about the food and the fact that they were charging so much more, and it was so hot and no one was like really doing anything for anyone about it. They ended up flipping the concession stands and like vandalizing them. But for the most part, there's actually not a lot of violence that was reported at Woodstock. For the most part, you have to understand, like, the people that were going to this festival were hippies, like, and hippies really did believe in peace, love, and unity. And typically when you see like pictures of hippies like fighting back, they're like really fighting more like the law. Like they're more fighting the establishment than they are fighting amongst each other. So for the most part, it's really still considered like a very peace and loving community, or peace and loving festival, and that people who did like go and didn't have as many problems really said that they had a great time, and people would share their food with other people, and if they had water. There were problems with people's drinks being laced with like LSD and other psychedelic drugs, which did result in quite a few people going to the. They did set up like an emergency tent, so like there were quite a few people that ended up having to go there to be seen for having bad trips. But actually only one person died of a drug overdose at Woodstock. I'm sorry, I keep pausing every time I say Woodstock because I keep wanting to call it Coachella. For the most part, there weren't a whole lot of violence. There was only one drug overdose. There was one other death that resulted from a tractor accident. There was a kid sleeping in a tent, and there was a tractor that was taking out some of the stuff from the porta potties, and unfortunately it did run over him. That was like the biggest thing, is like there was a lot of drugs at Woodstock. There was just no way to police it. There were way too many people. There was nothing set in place. It was just like a big yard essentially. So like how could you control these people? That's what the media really focused on. The media at this time was really anti-rock and roll. They thought it was the devil's music, or it wasn't, you know, it was just offbeat. It was different, and people weren't ready for that. They wanted to make a mockery of it. Like they just wanted to highlight all the things that didn't work about it, and they never talked about the good things that came out of it. Because honestly, like they don't really talk about that at all, but like when you look at pictures of this, or when you hear like recordings of it, like people in the crowd sound incredible. Like they sound like they're having the time of their life, and I'm sure a lot of people did. And that's kind of like the unspoken truth, is that at the underbelly of it, if you weren't a promoter, if you personally weren't trying to make a dime off of this thing, it probably was really moving to you. You know, I would think that would be a huge thing in my history. Like if I was alive at that time, I would have done anything to be a part of that. I saw one video about Woodstock and I was like, ooh, I want to know more. And so I started researching it, and now I'm like, okay, I gotta watch like every movie on it. Like I need to see every documentary. I need to go and listen to all the music. Like that's just who I am. When I think about hippies, I always picture them being barefoot. And that was actually a really big thing that was happening at the festival, as well as that there were all these barefoot people walking around, and people would drop cups, so there'd be glass on the floor, on the ground. and just, you know, all these hazards that you could just run your feet into. So like one of the big things they were treating was just like open wounds and things like that, and they were like highly suggesting people wear shoes for the remainder of the concert. Kind of funny to be wearing an Iron Maiden shirt and to be putting on this like very soft pink eyeshadow. So the last person to play Woodstock 1969 was Jimi Hendrix. I don't know if this was where he debuted his cover of the Star Spangled Banner, but he did play that, and he actually finished his set on Monday morning at like 9 a.m. And then, you know, Woodstock 69 was effectively over. If you want to know more about it, I highly suggest you check out this article where I got my information. It's on a website I think called ThoughtCo, and it's just about Woodstock, and I just thought it had a lot of really interesting information. And also if you're interested in like all the bands that played there, because it's like some really, really big name. Like even if you don't listen to classic rock and roll, like you would recognize these names at least on people's shirts and things like that. So I'll link that in the description below as well. I just realized I was about to wrap up the video and I haven't even put eyeliner on, so like my look's not done and I don't want to leave this video undone and I hate myself. But to wrap this up, like Woodstock 1969, it was both an insane success. It was also a huge failure. So the promoters ended up being like $1.3 million in debt due to not making their money back from ticket sales. Like I said, they were filming everything and they reserved the rights for a film, so they did release a documentary that did help to get their debt down to like 100,000. And it was a huge launching pad for like a lot of really big name acts today. Like a lot of people that we consider classics, we can definitely say that Woodstock helped to launch them into the stratosphere. And in terms of like how Woodstock affects us today, like seriously, we would not have a Coachella festival or all of these other festivals without Woodstock. Like it really did kick off this huge movement, and I think people were surprised by how far and wide people will travel, how much people will pay to see music, to see their favorite artists. I know a lot of people like to hate on Coachella and they're like, oh, it's just about fashion and like taking your pictures and doing drugs. And like, yeah, it is, but like, so is every festival ever. You don't think there was like mild competition between hippies to like who could out hippie the other hippie? Like, I'm just saying, people will always be people. And, you know, if you enjoy going to festivals, if you enjoy being in the environment, then do you, boo. I would personally love to go Coachella. I'm putting that out into the universe. I'd love to go next. I've never been, and it looks like a lot of fun. It literally is a combination of all my like favorite things: fashion, freaking music, food, alcohol. Like, sign me up. None of that sounds like a bad time to me, except for like the walking aspect of it and how hot it is. But at least Coachella's done in like April. But anyway, if you guys liked this video, I hope you did, because I actually had a lot of fun filming it, even though like it's been a little weird and I've been hopping around and I haven't been able to stay on track as much as I would like to. I do feel like this was a lot of fun. It was definitely more fun than just standing there and spewing words at you. So there are other festivals too that I'm really interested in learning about. There's also other Woodstocks. Woodstock 69 was just the beginning. So that's my little spiel on Woodstock. I hope that you had fun watching me put on my face while I talk to you about some music. If you like this idea as an ongoing series, if you want to see me talk more about music or music festivals or just things around music in combination with makeup, please let me know in the comments below. If you like hearing my opinion about movies, TV shows, music, whatever, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you trot over to that little bell icon, you can be notified every time I upload. It's been fun, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.